Dr. Bryan Ardis, let me ask you, from your experience and your opinion, what do you see as some of the major limitations that our current medical model is up against, especially when we're dealing with something like cancer?
Yeah, it's a great question and something I think that comes up for every patient that either is addressing a really catastrophic diagnosis or prognosis. Uh, Everyone should understand this, but truly, I think where we've missed the mark is in two primary, or actually three primary areas. I think health insurance has destroyed our healthcare systems in America. I think it has stripped the rights of medical professionals and healthcare professionals in every single sphere from being able to honestly and ethically practice medicine and healthcare with their patients. And for any company who who can actually tell a healthcare professional, we will not cover this modality or this prescription medication or this therapy, I think it's evil and needs to be destroyed. I think the medical professionals and healthcare professionals in the world know the histories of the patients better than anybody else, and at the bedside should be free to actually make the decisions on behalf of them as best as they can articulate and follow up on. So I think that's one. Health insurance, I think, has been a huge problem. Number two has been the specializing of medicine. I think when the medical profession decided to isolate various organ systems and only look at one organ as a part of the human body is a massive problem. The entire body is a system, and I think the entire body should be looked at by every healthcare professional as a whole. And I think that has been a huge problem in the world of medicine. It actually has left more mystery, more complexities, and worse outcomes for patients isolated and isolating them to see a specialist to only talk about your eyes or to talk about your kidneys or to talk about your lungs or your heart or your bladder or your ovaries, and not educating the patients on a whole or the professionals actually how the whole body and the whole system works as a whole. Then number three, the use of pharmaceutical drugs to mask symptoms and to be proposed and marketed as a treatment for any symptom or illness is a fraud. There is not a single symptom that a human being has ever had in their whole life. A fever, a cough, a sweats, a rash, a diarrhea. No one has ever had a symptom ever or a diagnosis of cancer that was caused by a prescription drug deficiency. And if that's not what's causing your symptom or your illness, why are you using those things as the therapy to dismiss the symptom or address the problem? When in fact, like in the instance of scurvy, which was the most recent plague to mimic the death outcome, such as COVID's pandemic, there were 6 million people that died supposedly worldwide during COVID, a 4-year pandemic. Scurvy killed over 2.5 million. And what they found in scurvy wasn't caused by drug deficiency or the need of a vaccine or a radiation or chemotherapy or a surgery of any kind. What they discovered was if individuals would eat one fruit, a citrus fruit, a lemon, an orange, or a lime, no one ever died from scurvy. And all scurvy symptoms disappeared. It wasn't for decades, if not a century later, when science finally caught up to find out what was in the fruit that prevented death and cured the world of scurvy, even to this day. It took almost 100 years to figure out that inside lemon, limes, and oranges was something called vitamin C. That was the cure for scurvy, and scurvy that killed millions in a very short time was a deficiency in vitamin C found in citrus fruits. And what they discovered was that each lime, lemon, and orange had 10 milligrams of vitamin C only. Now, to put that in perspective for people, did you know that in a capsule today that you buy at a grocery store or department store or a pharmacy or health food store, do you know that in one capsule of vitamin C, there's 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C in there? Well, all you need is an orange, lemon, or lime, just one with 10 milligrams of vitamin C to actually prevent and cure the world of scurvy. This is no different with cancer worldwide, that it is said kills millions of people worldwide. There are actually nutritional deficiencies that are created that lead to all disease outcomes and symptoms. And as long as you feed the body what it needs and take away from the body what is causing poison, toxicity, or immune suppression, you can cure almost any disease, but you have to change the environment in which your body's physiology and cells live in to change your experience of living. You can either be healthy or you can be sick. You get to choose, but you have to make the choice. Ignorance is not always bliss. So just to ignore the fact that you're eating Pop-Tarts every morning, that you're starting your day with dairy, milk, and cereal, to start with a Frappuccino at Starbucks. If you haven't figured out yet that these things you're doing every day to yourself are causing problems and you're not willing to change it, these are going to be the individuals showing up looking for anybody with a cure to save them. And those cures offered to you are going to be in a syringe, they're going to be in radiation, they're going to be in scalpels. And none of those are solutions to any health problems whatsoever. In fact, they can possibly alleviate a problem, but they're not a cure for those. To cure something is to actually return it back to its normal state. And that's not what cancer treatment or pharmaceutical drugs are designed to do.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with all three of those points. I mean, health insurance, which absolutely has to change, specialization of medicine, which is, so confounded and causes a lot of problems, especially, as you said, as very specialized areas of medicine where you're focusing on individual parts of the body and not taking the entire human being, the mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, environmental, relational, entire human being into consideration. And number three, the pharmaceuticals to basically mask symptoms. I would agree with about 90% of that, and where I would give like a tiny bit of pushback is in some cases, especially with the cancer patients we've worked with over the years, who, I just talked to a woman the other day, Lisa Nelson. She had tumors that had spread, metastasized throughout her whole body and were wrapping around her spine. And she was basically, very quickly about to be paralyzed or dead. And, emergency surgery, got some of those tumors off of her spine, gave her a little bit of, ability to not be paralyzed and not basically on her deathbed. And then following all the things that people learn in this series and that you talk about as well, cleaning up the diet, getting the toxins and poisons out of their life, healing mentally, emotionally, cleaning up the toxins out of their homes, all the things that people will learn in this. She did all of that, and within 2 years, she said, we saved her life, and I won't take the credit for that. I told her, I said, you took the action, you made the changes, but she had cancer still all over her body, but it was the surgery getting it off of her spine, still all over her body, and then her making the changes that now she has her quality of life back. She's got energy. The doctor said, oh, you'll never bend over again. You'll basically be bedridden. She said, yeah, right. She's got a mountain bike now. She's hiking through the mountains, riding her bike. She's, the chemotherapy was making her sick. 100% agreement with what you're saying about, cancer is not a deficiency of drugs, but so she stopped the chemo. The radiation made her feel terrible, so she stopped the radiation. She said, I'm just going to work on this naturally. And she went to town doing all the things. And here she is now. The cancer is actually regressing and she's getting her quality of life back. And she has so much hope. So I do want to say, there is a time and place, I believe, for conventional medicine, right?
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
I want to clarify my statement, though, to make sure it's not confusing. So I said pharmaceuticals. I mean, drugs are not the cure for anything. So the surgeries, though, and surgeons have been needed throughout human history. So I applaud and love and revere the life-saving efforts of urgent cares, of emergency rooms, and of surgeons. And we're always going to need surgeons. So that's the limitation, I believe, to conventional medicine, but not pharmaceuticals. But I will say there's no greater blessing I can't find, even in the world of surgery and conventional medicine, than anesthesia. I mean, who in the world wants to do surgery awake? Nobody. Anesthesia, one of the greatest discoveries in mainstream medicine in the last 100 years. Oh my God, how phenomenal is the blessing of anesthesia for surgery? And we're always going to need surgeons. So I have no problems with surgeons and using those, but to profess or even claim that anybody has a symptom because of a drug deficiency is crazy.
100%. 100% agreed. So let me ask you next, what are some of, and you alluded to it a little bit, but what are some of the true causes of cancer that most doctors don't know about today?
Oh, I love this question, actually. And in fact, pre-recording this with you, you had brought up a topic that you'd hammered on in one of the episodes of the series, and that was the emotional component. And I just have to say, in the last 15 years of my life, having been introduced in 2009 to the impact of emotional trauma to the body physically and its impact to lead to disease, symptoms, suffering, has been out of this world exciting and applicable to watch people reverse almost any condition whatsoever, just addressing emotional trauma and emotional burden. So there is something we're all aware of. Even all those watching this, I knew about it. There's something called psychosomatic. Psychosomatic, by definition in medicine, means psycho means mental, brain. Psychosomatic, somatic is your organs. So there's physical reactions to the mental. So you physically have a reaction to something you're emotionally experiencing or mentally experiencing. And you've all had this experience. Many people watching a film, if they see a bloody scene, often will feel they want to vomit or get nauseous and turn away. This is a physical reaction to an emotional experience. It's gross, it's horrific, and you get a physical reaction to want to vomit and run out of the theater. I mean, we've all had this moment. There is a physical reaction in the body to emotional experiences that we have. So I want to just summarize this, regardless of how controversial anybody's going to think this docuseries is. There was a book I read in 2011 called The Only Answer to Cancer by Dr. Leonard Caldwell. And in that book, Dr. Caldwell writes that of all the patients he has seen in his 30 plus career as a medical trained American doctor in Germany now, he said 85% of every terminally diagnosed cancer patient he has evaluated, 85% of every single patient he had seen, which were thousands, in the first 2 days of his evaluation, he said all he's looking for is what is the number one toxic relationship that individual has in their life. And 85% of all cancers, he says, he has discovered over decades of treating cancer patients. Now, I would like to summarize this for the audiences and remind you, anyone in the audience who thinks this guy is lying, I would like to ask you, have you treated thousands of cancer patients and sat at their bed? This guy who has says 85% of every single cancer he's ever seen, no matter how terminal, stage 4, stage 5, doesn't matter. 85% of all of them have one singular cause, and it is one toxic emotional relationship to one human. And he spends several days trying to find out, can he figure out for this person who that individual might be? And then his promise to his patients is, if you will cut that individual out of your life forever, you can cure yourself of that disease within 12 weeks and your cancer will reverse itself. But you have to like block all their emails, block all their text messages, never go see them. It doesn't matter if it's your spouse, your wife, your kids, it doesn't matter your boss. You have to get this toxic individual out of your life. And the promise is for these individuals traveling all the way to Germany looking for life-saving care. He says, if you really want to get over your cancer, you got to cut these people out of your life. And for those that do, they reverse all their cancers. For the other 15% of people who also are diagnosed with cancer, he said there is an underlying toxic impact from their diet, from things they're exposed to, from things they're putting on their body in the way of toxicities or toxins and cosmetics, you name it. In fact, it's been known for decades. Anything that starts with prop, P-R-O-P, propylene glycol, propanediol that's in your cosmetics are known to cause cancer. So, and almost 90% of all cosmetics in America have this substance in it. So as you lather it up on your body, you are actually putting carcinogens that cause cancer on your skin and getting absorbed into your body within minutes. Your skin's a huge sponge and absorbs it in. So there are toxins we're exposed to every day. It's in our food, it's in our cosmetics, it's in our air, it's in our water that can actually contribute to a high majority or percentage of people, up to 15% in Dr. Caldwell's case, of leading to a cancerous disease state in the human body. And then he helps to detox those individuals in many ways and offers many solutions in his book, The Only Answer to Cancer. And I only bring that up because that was a really incredible number. 85% of all cancers he has seen. I wasn't a cancer specialist. I was a chiropractor, but I'll just say here, every single cancer patient I ever saw who came in diagnosed with cancer in my practice as a chiropractor, acupuncturist, and nutritionist, when they came to me, every single one of them had parasite infections and never tested positive for cancer with our testing techniques. And then when we would do a parasite cleanse with them, 95 to 100% of them would actually eradicate in a 2 to 3 month period of time all of their cancerous lesions and tumors, polyps, cysts, you name it, tumors. So I had come to understand that there was this massive deceit, it felt like, in the mainstream media to not educate medical doctors in med schools about parasites in America, because I was seeing them all the time in all of my patients and then seeing miraculous results doing parasite cleanses. And so I have educated a lot of medical doctors in the last 5 years since the advent of the pandemic they called COVID about, on top of the hospital protocols and remdesivir that I was educating people on. Lots of MDs wanted to know, well, what else have we been lied to about? And one of the first topics I presented was, if you start looking up research papers on the connection to parasites, cancers, and anti-parasitic treatments curing cancer, you're going to be blown away. In my practice, I told them all 75 to 80% of all cancers I saw were actually parasitic infections and not cancer whatsoever. Or the parasite infection, along with chemicals in the body, were creating and allowing proliferation of cells that were being diagnosed as cancerous tumors. So do not dismiss parasite treatments and parasites in America, particularly. I hope this goes global, this interview and this documentary. But in America, medical doctors are taught in med schools that parasites do not exist in America. So to lie to you about that, and by the time you graduate and put on that white coat, that big certificate in your clinic, and anybody walks in with cancer, or anybody walking in asking, do I have parasites? Your MD looks at you and just repeats the lie they were told in med school, that parasites don't exist in America. Well, if that's true, why does the CDC say that 90 million Americans right now have parasites? How come the CDC in America says 90% of Americans have protozoa parasites that cause disease? That's a third of our country, by the way. How can the medical professionals not know this information or not have it given to them? So there's a lot of things that are underlying that I find odd that it's not shared with all healthcare professionals and with all patients. And these are just some of the things that we have learned over the last 30 years that have provided value to individuals trying to live a healthy life and help rid themselves of the disease, suffering created by tumors, masses diagnosed as cancers.
Yeah, those are two really big ones for sure. When I filmed at Dr. Keneally's clinic in California, which is the Cancer Center for Healing, I believe, or Center for New Medicine, and interviewed much of her staff, one of the things that they said, and they've seen thousands, tens of thousands of cancer patients at this point, every single cancer patient they have tested for parasites has come up positive for one or more parasites. And so, their protocols, and many of the functional medicine doctors that we work with, their protocols clearly are parasite cleanses. And some people get better and some people don't. But the fact that every single one of her thousands of patients they've tested have had one or more parasites, that's got to tell you something. That parasites are way more ubiquitous than we've been told. And we do know that parasitic infections cause chronic inflammation, and we do know chronic inflammation damages mitochondria, and we know that damaged mitochondria can cause the cells to chronically ferment and become cancerous, right? So that evidence is really clear in the literature when you dig into it. And so, looking at the parasites and figuring out how to get them out of your body is pretty important for sure.
And then I'll bring up a third one. So I talked about emotions, talked about parasites. Let me talk about this third one, because this is a big deal, because I didn't know anything about this until 2 years ago, and I could not believe it. I was never trained to look for this, never told to evaluate for this, never was told it's being sprayed out of airplanes on our plants and farms, had no idea it was being put in our water, had no idea it was in our cosmetics, had no idea it was in drugs and vaccines. And that is the industrial manufacturing of venoms worldwide. I had no idea this was almost $1 trillion industry worldwide every year for decades, supporting the drug manufacturing, vaccine manufacturing, cosmetics, and insecticide industries. I had no idea. And for the majority of you out there, I guarantee you, people watching this docuseries and other series about cancers and health platforms and concepts like this have heard about the detrimental toxic effects of a chemical called glyphosate, made by Monsanto, owned by Bayer now. The Bayer Aspirin Corporation owns Monsanto. I don't know if you guys know this, but glyphosate, which is now a highly cancer-causing, disease-causing agent that is commonly referred to as Roundup, weed killer. Okay, this substance or chemical called glyphosate, owned, patented, synthetically manufactured by Monsanto. Did y'all know Monsanto owns the largest patent library of insecticides used worldwide that are made from scorpion venom, snake venom, wasp venom, and bee venom? Did you know that? And then the question is where are they using these insecticides and why? We've never heard this. Where are they using venoms and spraying them all over the world, using them as insecticides? Oh, well, England right now, if you live in England, a lot of farms in England are using crop dusters to spray clouds of scorpion venom all over their fields. Did you guys know that venom in the human body, anyway, you ingest it, put it on your skin, inhale it, inject it? Did you know that all venoms cause cancer? All of them. Did you know that venom was figured out in 1956 by Dr. Stanley Cohen to cause something he called nerve growth factor? And that nerve growth factor is now being used by oncologists all around the world to explain the aggressive growth of neurological tumors? Nerve growth factor. Do you know what he discovered nerve growth factor was a side effect of? Snake venom being exposed to brain cells of a developing chicken or a developing mammal. And he called it nerve growth factor, that he could accelerate the growth and create glioblastomas. He could create any tumor he wanted in just a few days, just exposing the animal to venom. And then in 1986, 30 years later, we gave this guy and his buddy Rita the Nobel Prize in Medicine for doing the research in 1956 that proved venom causes all kinds of cancers in the human body. All right, so this is important. Why would the National Cancers Institute in 1956 pay Rita and Dr. Stanley to investigate snake venom causing rapid tumor growth in the brain of mammals and animals? And then in 1961, why would they pay them again to do research on snake venom in mammals to see, will it create cancer in your skin of the animal, on the ovaries of the animal, in the breast of the animal, in the stomach of the animal, in the intestines of the animal, in the ovaries of the animal, you name it, pancreas of the animal? Why were they paying these people to do that? Only to award them with a Nobel Prize in Medicine for figuring out that venom causes cancer growth in all tissues in 1986. I'd like to ask the audiences, why haven't you been told since 1981 that lisinopril, your high blood pressure drug, is actually dried snake venom from a viper in Brazil that you're swallowing every morning? And how come you haven't been told that snake venom, when ingested, causes cancers? And they've known it since 1956, and they awarded scientists a Nobel Prize for figuring that out. Why hasn't a single medical doctor I've talked to in the last 2.5 years ever known that they were prescribing to their patients snake venom to swallow? I'd like you to ask yourself, why is it that Oprah Winfrey, Tucker Carlson, in the last 2 months have done shows on Ozempic and injection weekly for diabetes and being overweight? These are injections prescribed for life, by the way. How come they haven't told you that it's actually synthetic Gila monster venom isolated from the Gila monster lizard out of the deserts of southwestern America? And why didn't they tell you that you're injecting once a week Gila monster venom into your body? And how come they're not telling you that there's a black box warning that Gila monster venom and these drugs called Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Byetta, and Majorna, how come they're not telling you that there's a black box warning within 12 months to 36 months you will develop medullary thyroid cancers of every type? Why don't they tell you that? I think that's important. They should probably tell you that when hundreds of millions are watching these two people talk about Ozempic, Wegovy, Majorna as miracle cures for weight loss genetics that you can't overcome. You have adipose genes you can't overcome. Thank you, Oprah Winfrey. You got to inject yourself with Ozempic to lose weight, to override the flaw in God's creation, which was you. He screwed up, but Gila monster venom injections will fix that for you. Do it every week for the rest of your life. We're not going to tell you it causes paralyzed stomachs in hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, already reported by CNN for years after stopping the drug. They don't tell you that venom binds to your vagal nerve and doesn't let go for years and makes you cyclically vomit every day, losing jobs for hundreds of thousands of people. They can't take care of their kids. They're throwing up 24/7. They didn't tell you that. Venom is toxic, it's deadly, and there's 2 things that were defined by Dr. Stanley Cohen and Rita in 1956 and 1961. Venom in any form introduced into a mammal by injection, topical, or oral will cause cancer through something called nerve growth factor and now epidermal growth factor, EGF and NGF. And any oncologist who doesn't know this, you might want to start screening people with the Lisa Kit test to look for snake venom poisoning in all your cancer patients. Because they've known this for decades. In fact, I would encourage anybody out there watching this, if you've had a loved one who was ever prescribed an ACE inhibitor for blood pressure, and we're on that for any period of time, and later, after starting the medication to lower their blood pressure, which they are told, by the way, to take it for life, I want you to look up your loved one's blood pressure medication, and if it's an ACE inhibitor like captopril, lisinopril, enalapril, if it's any of those that end with pril, I want you to look up the cancer your loved one was diagnosed with after starting that drug years earlier or months earlier. There is a direct correlation to every single ACE inhibitor drug that's made from snake venom and every single cancer known to man. So the question is, though, is why haven't they told you this? Why hasn't medical professionals learned about parasites in America? When every veterinarian clinic you go into in America has a pamphlet on the wall that says parasites, your pets, and you. And then it tells you all the parasites that can transfer from your pets into you. And if you asked a parasitologist how many people in the world have parasites, in unison, they'll all say 100% of people who have pets in their home have parasites. It's amazing that they know everybody who has pets in their homes are getting parasites from their pets and from their food and their soil and water. But it's amazing to me that the medical profession has no clue, for the majority of them, that parasites even exist in America, and they were lied to. And I find that unfortunate. So when I talk about this, I want to show something. I don't think I've shown this to very many people. This is a cosmetic product. You can buy this from social media marketing campaigns from influencers all over America. And when you order this for anti-aging and anti-wrinkle cream, this is a cosmetic. On the front, it says this serum is 84% conopeptide essence. Do you know what conopeptide is, by the way? Conopeptides are cone snail venom out of the ocean. And there were 15 of these cone snail venoms found in every COVID-19 positive patient, but not in anybody who tested negative for COVID. Conopeptides, or conotoxins, cone snail venoms out of the ocean, are used as anti-wrinkle creams and anti-aging creams all over the world. And if you don't know this is true, this is a billion-dollar industry. In the ingredients section, I want to share with you, if you read the ingredients, it says conotoxin peptides, comma, snake venom, comma, etc. It doesn't tell you what the etc. is, but the fact that this is made up of snake venom as a serum and cone snail venom as a serum to apply to reduce wrinkles like Botox, which is another venom from bacteria. All venoms cause cancer. Did you know cone snail venom that's in this is 84% cone snail venom? This is manufactured in China and being sold to Americans all over for anti-wrinkles, anti-aging issues. Did you know that cone snail venoms in 2021 during the pandemic were found, cone snail venoms that's inside this cosmetic? Did you know cone snail venoms within 72 hours of crossing your blood-brain barrier cause glioblastoma tumors, which makes up half of all brain tumors being diagnosed right now? Cone snail venoms. Anybody want some cone snail venoms to reduce wrinkles? This goes right into your bloodstream, will cross your blood-brain barrier, and you will, I promise, develop brain tumors. I promise. That's what cone snail venom does. And they were able to prove it. You know, it was ironic with this cone snail venom study in 2021. They used cone snail venoms, conotoxins, that's inside these cosmetics, and they used cobra toxin, king cobra venom, together, and they could create any glioblastoma they wanted in 72 hours or less. And then they turned around and investigated 3 doses of one thing to see if it would destroy and dissolve the cancerous brain tumor called a glioblastoma. And they published that they could dissolve the tumor by half in 72 hours with one nutrient called nicotine. And they used 3 different doses after creating the glioblastoma with cone snail venom and cobra venom, which is snake venom. It's in the cosmetics, man. Oh, and for fun, everybody home, do this. Type in made-in-china.com, and in the search engine, type snake venom peptides. And you will see all the cosmetics and all the manufacturing all over China and all over the world of all the powder forms of venoms being sold in bulk form to cosmetic companies around the world. You might want to know what you're putting on your skin because it crosses your skin, goes into your blood, and creates all kinds of disease and problems. And venoms accelerate all cancerous tumor growth. I did not know this until 2.5 years ago. I didn't want to know any of this stuff, but it has been miraculous. And what are you seeing right now? Turbo cancers all over the media being published and written about by pathologists, by oncologists, by social media influencers, turbo cancers, and medical professionals. Well, there's one thing that they have found since 1956 creates turbo cancers, and that is venoms. So venoms were found in COVID patients, snake venom phosphodiesterases in the COVID-19 vaccines. And the two people that just won the Nobel Prize for creating the mRNA COVID-19 vaccines admit there is snake venom phosphodiesterase inside their COVID-19 mRNA vaccines. It's in all their research studies. And guess what snake venom phosphodiesterase does? It causes rapid blood clotting and cancer formation. All right, well, you might want to start taking care of the body internally and stop or reduce the self-inflicted poisoning all of us are doing every day with cosmetics, vaccines, drugs, processed foods, and not drinking distilled water or filtered water. These are just some basic things we can do. Start exercising, sweating, detoxing the body every day. We're bombarded, all of us, with all kinds of poisons and toxins. The less we do voluntarily, the better the outcome for life is going to be.
Dr. Ardis, you just dropped a massive bombshell, and you glazed over nicotine as a solution. So we're going to come back to that. I've seen your in-depth, like 2.5 hour presentation on that, and it is fascinating. But the one thing I've not been able to find that I've heard you claim before is these the scientists that have admitted that the vaccine has snake venom in it, and the research that shows that the vaccines have snake venom in it. So where can we find that? Because I've not been able to find it. It's buried.
Yeah. So when I say they admitted, you're not going to see them in an interview. Hey, is there snake venom in there? They don't say that. They published that in every one of their research papers in developing the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine since 2009. So every paper, 2009, 2011, 2012, the two scientists are Catalin Carrico and Drew Wiseman. Catalin Carrico and Drew Wiseman. They just won the Nobel Prize in October. If you can't figure out what their name is, just look up Nobel Prize in Medicine, mRNA vaccines. Catalin Carrico is Katalin, Kariko. Drew Wiseman, Drewissman. And they work at the University of Pennsylvania. Starting in 2009, they were funded. If you look at their funding sections of their first paper, 2009, the NIH is funding them to do mRNA gene therapy treatment. And in that paper, in the materials and methods section, you will see that they use something called RNase and snake venom phosphodiesterase twice to cleave the RNA or DNA of the mammal to do their gene therapy with mRNA. Now, the words snake venom phosphodiesterase are in every single paper. So this is them telling you what they're using to do gene therapy. So to do gene therapy, they have to cut your DNA or your RNA and insert some other gene. They're trying to manipulate your genetics. Snake venom phosphodiesterase, they claim in every paper, is used to cleave or cut your RNA to be able to do gene therapy. Now, if you go to Bentham Science and look up what snake venom phosphodiesterase does to any mammal, the very first thing you'll see in the abstract summary, Bentham Science, Bentham Science, they quote in the summary that snake venom phosphodiesterase causes rapid hemagglutination and platelet aggregation, which is blood clotting. When you go to the first page of that paper, it tells you that RNases, which is the other element inside of Drew Wiseman and Catalin Carrico's papers for creating the mRNA gene injections, they said they use 3, 4, or 5 different RNases and snake venom phosphodiesterase. What I didn't know was the RNases, RNases, in the Bentham Science document, it actually says that RNases are universally found in all snake venoms. Well, now you've got multiple snake venom proteins being utilized to damage DNA and RNA. to do gene therapy. And they need something that will cut or damage DNA. That is the evolutionary or detrimental side effect of all venoms, is to damage our genetics. It kills cells. Venom is a toxin. It's a poison designed to kill your cells and stop them from replicating, supposedly, so you die. But if you expose venom to tissues, you'll accelerate deaths, accelerate disease, cancer formation, you name it.
So, what do you make of the research that's been published in the last few years of venoms in particular for cancer therapies, where they're showing, they're using these venoms to destroy cancer cells, and they're, now coming out with this next cutting edge cancer therapy with using venom, whereas you're saying here's the research that shows venom causes cancer, but now we have research showing that they're using venom to kill cancer cells. What do you make of that?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question and a great point. So almost everything you'll read, water is good for you, water is deadly for you. I mean, you can drink too much water and die. You can drink some water and stay alive. Moderation, all those things, but that does not apply to venoms. So in the world of venoms, I'll just tell you, when it comes to snake venoms, and oh my goodness, I don't even want to sound like I'm some kind of snake venom researcher. I am not, but boy, do I read a lot. And man, you get caught up really quick. So in the field of venoms, in the field of venoms alone, in all the venomous creatures on Earth, there are 58 individual venom proteins they have isolated, for example, that cause changes to an animal's blood. Okay. So there are cytotoxic, hemotoxic, and neurotoxic effects of all venoms. So neurotoxic is neurological damage, paralyzation, Bell's palsy, polio. These are all symptoms of venom being paralyzed neurologically. So that's neurological effects. And there's hematological effects, blood changing effects. The venoms either do one of two things. They cause thickening of the blood to lead to blood clots, or they cause blood thinning and hemorrhaging, bleeding out of your nose, eyes, ears. Picture Ebola, Marburg. That's what they want you to see. That is hemorrhaging of blood, thinning of blood, too thin. So that's the only two things venoms do. But of all venom proteins in the world, they have found that change the blood of an animal from thin or thick. They have found there's only 18 of the 58 or 56, one of the two. There's only 18 that cause blood clotting. The rest of them all cause blood thinning. So when you're talking about science and you're talking about pharmaceuticals being made from venoms, they actually are using medications that are synthetic venoms to do two things at once. They can make you form blood clots in your body and then bring you in and give you the other venom to cause blood thinning. They can actually give you a venom that causes blood clotting, and then you can go to the ER for blood clotting, and then they're going to give you something to thin the blood, and they could use venom that thins the blood to do the same thing. So you can create cancers with certain venoms, and you can use venoms that actually bind to the same receptors and keep the venoms from creating that. You're just using venoms to manipulate physiology, to target a receptor or not target a receptor, or block that receptor or activate that receptor. So they can use venoms of all kinds. And this is what they're doing. They're playing a game of physiology in your body with venoms. And this is a great point. Dr. Stanley Cohen, I just mentioned in 1956, who discovered venom causes nerve growth factor, nerve tumors, brain tumors, and got the Nobel Prize in 1986. Do you know what else he did in 1986? He was contacted and was a consultant in creating a brand new pharmaceutical company spelled Gene, Gene, in Tech, Tech. And I think its website is gene.com, gene.com. Gene in Tech is what it's called, or how it's spelled. All right, so Stanley Cohen was consulted on Gene and Tech. Do you know Gene and Tech right now has 7 or 8 different cancer drugs that are used to treat cancers that are made from snake venom? So they are using venoms to manipulate your physiology, to create cancers, try to reverse cancers, and they're just using venoms as poisons that they know will have specific changes and altering your body's physiology. And then they will use other venoms from other snakes or other creatures, and they'll inject those inside of you to try to offset the severity of the other venom. And that's the game you're playing when it comes to venoms and cancer. It is no different. In fact, imagine taking lisinopril, which is a snake venom component that neurologically paralyzes your blood vessels to lower your blood pressure, and then later you develop cancer. And then imagine going to your oncologist, and that oncologist prescribes you a drug made by Genentech that's also made by snake venom, and you see a reduction in your tumor somewhat. Then they give you radiation, chemo, and surgery recommendations also. This would be the play, and this is how they use venoms. They use venoms that either accelerate, proliferate, or turn it down. And then they use venoms to create blood clotting, to reverse blood clotting. Then they can't use venoms to stop the cells from killing themselves. All venoms kill cells. So a couple key points here I'd like to actually share with your audiences. I think your audiences will like this, that I have learned and had to learn. Do you know that hydrogen peroxide, have you ever brought this up in docuseries?
We know that, high dose vitamin C intravenously actually helps your body produce hydrogen peroxide, and your own internal hydrogen peroxide actually kills cancer cells. But yeah,
I love that you brought that up. So you have educated audiences that the human body can make hydrogen peroxide, right? Good. Did you know that all venoms, including glyphosate, whether or not it is a venom, do you know glyphosate and all venoms do the exact same thing when it gets in your body?
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you on that point. Actually, I'm glad you brought it back up, because you alluded that glyphosate has venom in it, or is made from venom. But I want to find out if that's.
I believe it is synthetic.
If you've
venom.
Substantiated it, or you're kind of just linking that from your research.
Yeah. So when you look at what glyphosate does, which is owned by Monsanto, and then you study Monsanto's research and their patents they have acquired from the United States government for all insecticides made from venoms, and you look at Roundup and Roundup Plus, for example, we have actually had testing done with German technology on Roundup and Roundup Plus. Do you know Roundup regular had 7 different venoms in it, and Roundup Plus had 11?
Who did that? Who did that testing?
In the actual substrate. Yeah, Dr. Alfonso Monzo in Ohio did it.
Wow.
Alfonso Monzo, Monzo. So we actually sent him to go get that, because when he evaluated my wife's blood, when I went up there last year, she tested positive for scorpion venom in her body. And I was like, that's weird. The only scorpion venom I've ever seen is Monsanto's claims they use it as an insecticide. And my wife loves veggies and salads more than anything else, and eats way more than I do. But when we're traveling, you can't always get organic stuff at restaurants. So I was like, well, maybe that's where they got it. Can you please, I looked at the doc and I said, can you please tell one of your staff to go to Home Depot or Lowe's and bring me some Roundup, because of stuff I've read about Monsanto. I just want to see, is there any scorpion venom in the actual products? So we ran both of them. Both of them tested positive for scorpion venom. And I was like, oh my God, this could be where it got into my wife. It's pretty wild. So, and then scorpion venom is being used and owned by a patent from Michigan State University. I know it's being used as insecticides in England right now, out of crop dusters, spraying clouds of scorpions. What do scorpions hunt? They eat insects, grasshoppers, locusts. So when they spray scorpion venom in clouds all over farms, they expect as grasshoppers, locusts, and bugs get on the plants and eat the leaves, they're going to eat the scorpion venom and the animal's going to die.
And it's considered their proprietary formula, so they wouldn't have to technically, let the public know that that's what's in it, because it's proprietary.
Exactly right.
Which is true for pharmaceutical drugs, which is true for these venoms, which is true for, I want to go back to the chemotherapeutic agents and using venoms as basically chemotherapeutic agents. Now, most of the studies I've seen are primarily like Petri dish and things like that, and they're looking more at mechanisms, right? And so that's a problem with kind of modern science today, is we can go, all right, I've got this venom, and in a Petri dish or even in a mouse, we can target it like a chemotherapeutic agent and kill the cancer cells. Hey, we've got success. We've got a drug that kills cancer cells. In the meantime, it's also over here causing cancer because it's damaging DNA and damaging mitochondria at the cell level, right? And so we see that all the time with chemotherapy and radiation. Forget the venom conversation. Chemotherapy and radiation both are carcinogenic, meaning even though they're killing cancer cells, they actually cause cancer. And that's very clear in the literature, but your oncologist most likely will not tell you that, unfortunately.
And really, truly, the point of any of these interviews and any of these researches and docuseries is to tell you there are possibly other ways and other things you could consider on top of what conventionally you're being told. And so if you're going to do chemotherapy and radiation, go be it. This is your life. You have one life to live. If that's what you choose to go do, great. We're telling you there are other things you can consider and do research on your own that has provided benefit and remissions, miraculous remissions to a whole lot of people that the majority of your conventional medical professionals will not tell you, because they're not treating those people. So these are the reasons why these docuseries are so exciting.